The Inheritance. Chapter 1. The Voice. My name is Dr. Olivia Marsh, and I've spent 12 years studying how the human brain processes sound, which makes it particularly disturbing that for the past 3 weeks, I've been hearing a voice that shouldn't exist. I'm a neuroscientist specializing in auditory processing disorders at Columbia University Medical Center in New York. I work with patients who hear phantom sounds, tinnitus, musical hallucinations, auditory verbal hallucinations associated with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. I understand the neural mechanisms better than almost anyone in my field. I know how the superior temporal gyrus can create sounds in silence. I know how neurotransmitter imbalances in the dopaminergic pathways can produce voices that feel utterly real. I've published 17 peer-reviewed papers on this exact phenomenon, but I never thought I'd become one of my own case studies. It started on a Tuesday morning in October. I was in my lab on the 8th floor of the medical center, analyzing fMRI data from a patient with treatment-resistant schizophrenia who described hearing commanding voices telling them to harm themselves. The scans showed hyperactivity in the superior temporal gyrus and anterior cingulate cortex, exactly what we'd expect from the literature. My research assistant, David Chen, was preparing the next participant when I heard it. A voice, clear as crystal, female, speaking directly into my left ear as though someone was standing right behind me, lips nearly touching my skin. Olivia, you need to listen. I spun around so fast my coffee cup went flying, splashing across my keyboard. The lab was empty except for David, who was across the room with headphones on, running equipment calibrations. No one could have whispered in my ear. The door was closed. We were alone. I checked my equipment. Sometimes lab equipment creates audio artifacts, feedback loops from improperly grounded electronics, electromagnetic interference from nearby MRI machines. But everything was off. The room was silent except for the hum of the ventilation system. "Did you say something?" I called to David. He pulled off his headphones, looking confused. "What?" "Nothing. Never mind." I told myself it was stress. I'd been working 16-hour days for the past 6 weeks, preparing a grant application worth $2.5 million that would fund my research for the next 5 years. I hadn't slept properly in weeks, maybe 4 or 5 hours a night, often interrupted. Auditory hallucinations can occur in neurologically normal individuals under conditions of extreme sleep deprivation. It's well documented in the literature. During World War II, radar operators who worked extended shifts reported hearing voices. Long-distance truck drivers experience similar phenomena. The brain, desperate for sensory input during exhaustion, starts creating its own. But the voice came back the next day, and the day after that. Always the same voice. Always the same message. Olivia, you need to listen. By the end of the first week, I was hearing it 3 or 4 times a day. Always when I was alone. Always in my left ear, never my right, which was itself curious. Always clear enough that I'd turn around expecting to see someone standing behind me. I started documenting it. That's what I do. I'm a scientist. I created a spreadsheet tracking each occurrence: date, time, location, contextual factors, emotional state, hours of sleep the previous night, caffeine intake, blood glucose levels. I was looking for patterns, for variables that might explain the phenomenon. The pattern I found was disturbing. The voice only spoke when I was thinking about my mother. My mother, Olivia Marsh, died 6 months ago from pancreatic cancer. She was 58 years old. We had a complicated relationship. She was brilliant, demanding, emotionally distant in the way that high-achieving women of her generation often were. She was a renowned concert pianist who toured internationally throughout my childhood. I was raised more by a succession of nannies and boarding schools than by her. Our conversations, when we had them, were more like performance reviews than mother-daughter bonding. I spent my childhood trying to earn her approval through academic achievement, perfect grades, perfect test scores, early admission to MIT, PhD by 26, tenure track at Columbia by 30. I thought if I was successful enough, brilliant enough, important enough, maybe she'd finally see me as something more than an obligation she'd agreed to fulfill when she accidentally got pregnant at 23. But in the last 3 months of her life, something changed. The cancer had metastasized to her liver and spine. She knew she was dying, and suddenly she wanted to talk. She kept calling me, leaving voicemails that said she had things she needed to tell me, things about our family, things about who I really was, things she should have told me years ago but was too afraid. I kept putting her off. I was busy with work, I was uncomfortable with emotional conversations. I told myself we'd have time later, after I finished the grant application, after the semester ended, after I published my latest paper. We didn't. She died on a Wednesday afternoon in April. I was in a grant committee meeting, arguing passionately about the importance of studying auditory processing in schizophrenia when the hospital called. By the time I got there, she was already gone. The nurse said she'd asked for me in the final hours, said she'd kept trying to say something important, but she'd lost consciousness before I arrived. Among her belongings, the hospital gave me a sealed manila envelope with my name written on it, in my mother's elegant, unmistakable handwriting. To be opened by Olivia Marsh only was written across the seal. I put it in the bottom drawer of my desk at home and never opened it. Until 3 weeks ago, when the voice started. Olivia, you need to listen. On the third Friday of hearing the voice, I finally opened the envelope. Inside was a single piece of paper with an address in upstate New York and a handwritten note. Olivia, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm so sorry I didn't tell you while I was alive. I was afraid you'd think I was crazy, afraid you'd hate me for keeping secrets. But you need to know the truth about our family. Go to this address. Ask for Dr. Helena Cordova. Tell her you're Elizabeth Marsh's daughter. She'll explain everything. There are things in our blood, in our genes, that make us different. Things I should have prepared you for. I love you more than you know, and I'm sorry for every time I failed to show it. Mom. I stared at the note for 20 minutes, reading and rereading it. Dr. Helena Cordova. I'd never heard that name before. I pulled out my laptop and Googled her. Hundreds of results appeared. She's a prominent neurologist specializing in rare genetic neurological disorders. Publications in Nature Neuroscience, The Lancet, JAMA Neurology. She runs a private research clinic called the Cordova Institute in the Adirondacks, focused on hereditary neurological conditions. Why would my mother send me to a neurologist? Did she think I was sick? Did she think I had some genetic condition? That night, lying in bed, unable to sleep, I heard the voice again. But this time, it said something different. Olivia, go to Helena, before it's too late. I should have ignored it. I should have made an appointment with a psychiatrist, one of my colleagues down the hall who specializes in treating medical professionals with psychiatric conditions. I should have gotten myself properly evaluated, started on an antipsychotic, maybe an SSRI for the anxiety that was making my hands shake and my heart race. But instead, I got in my car the next morning at dawn and drove north, toward the Adirondacks, toward answers I wasn't sure I wanted. Chapter 2. The Clinic. The address my mother gave me leads to a converted Victorian mansion 3 hours north of New York City, hidden in dense forest near Lake Placid. The drive takes me through increasingly remote terrain. First suburban sprawl, then small towns with empty main streets, then nothing but pine trees and mountains, and the occasional historical marker about Revolutionary War battles fought in these woods. There's no sign announcing the Cordova Institute. No indication this is a medical facility. Just a brass plaque on the door of a beautifully maintained 3-story Victorian house. Cordova Institute for Neurological Research. Private. By appointment only. I knock. The door is heavy, solid wood, and my knuckles barely make a sound. I'm about to knock again when the door opens. A woman in her mid-60s stands in the doorway, sharp features softened by time, silver hair pulled back in an elegant chignon, intelligent grey eyes that assess me in a single glance. She's wearing casual but expensive clothes, tailored slacks, a cashmere sweater, pearl earrings. She looks more like someone who should be hosting dinner parties in Manhattan than running a research facility in the woods. Dr. Cordova? Yes, and you must be Olivia Marsh. She steps aside. I've been expecting you. Please, come in. The interior is surprising. Part elegant home, part cutting-edge research facility. The entryway has Persian rugs and oil paintings of mountain landscapes, but through an open door to my left, I can see an examination room with modern medical equipment. An EEG machine, what looks like a transcranial magnetic stimulation device, computer monitors displaying brain imaging software. Your mother contacted me 3 months before she died, Dr. Cordova says, leading me through the house to a sitting room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a fireplace. She told me you'd likely come here eventually. She wanted me to explain some things about your family history, things she didn't have time to tell you herself. What things? Let's start with a question. Dr. Cordova gestures for me to sit. Have you been experiencing any unusual symptoms lately? Specifically, auditory phenomena? My blood runs cold. I haven't told anyone about the voices. Not David. Not my therapist from grad school who I still see occasionally. Not anyone. How did you know? Because your mother experienced the same thing. So did your grandmother. So did your great-grandmother, though I never had the chance to examine her. She died before I started my research. It runs in your family, Olivia. It's genetic. What's genetic? Auditory hallucinations? Not hallucinations. Dr. Cordova pulls a thick folder from a drawer in an antique desk. Your mother authorized me to share these medical records with you. They document a condition that's been in your maternal line for at least 4 generations, possibly longer. We call it Hereditary Auditory Sensitivity Syndrome, or HAS. She opens the folder. Inside are medical records spanning decades, handwritten notes from the 1960s, typed reports from the 80s and 90s, modern brain scans and genetic analyses from the past decade. My mother's name appears throughout. HAS is an extremely rare genetic condition, Dr. Cordova continues. Fewer than 200 documented cases worldwide, though I suspect there are many more undiagnosed individuals. It causes hyperactivity in specific regions of the auditory cortex, primarily the superior temporal gyrus, but also the primary auditory cortex in the temporal lobe and parts of the Wernicke's area. People with HAS have dramatically enhanced auditory processing capabilities. They can hear frequencies most humans can't perceive. They can detect sounds at volumes far below normal hearing thresholds. Some can even distinguish between nearly identical tones that would sound the same to normal ears. That sounds like a superpower, not a disease. It is, and it isn't. Enhanced hearing can be useful. Many musicians have mild forms of this condition. But it also means you're constantly bombarded with sensory information your brain wasn't designed to process at this volume. Many people with HAS develop psychiatric symptoms, anxiety, paranoia, depression. They hear things that seem impossible. They hear conversations happening 3 rooms away. They hear the electrical hum of power lines that normal people can't detect. They start questioning their sanity because they're perceiving a world that doesn't match what everyone else experiences. I think about my mother, the way she'd sometimes flinch at sounds no one else could hear, the way she wore noise-cancelling headphones even in quiet rooms, claiming she needed them to concentrate, the way she always seemed agitated, on edge, as though she was listening to something the rest of us couldn't perceive. My mother had this condition? Yes, and she managed it relatively well considering. She channeled the sensitivity into her piano playing. That enhanced auditory discrimination made her extraordinarily talented at hearing subtle variations in tone and rhythm. But there's something else you need to understand. Dr. Cordova leans forward. HASS doesn't just enhance normal hearing. It allows you to perceive infrasound, sounds below 20 Hz, which are below the threshold of normal human hearing. And infrasound has some very unusual properties. Like what? Infrasound can travel extremely long distances without degrading. It can penetrate walls, pass through solid objects, bypass normal acoustic barriers. It's used by some animals for long-distance communication. Elephants coordinate herd movements using infrasound that can be heard by other elephants up to 6 miles away. Whales sing songs in the infrasonic range that can be detected by other whales across entire ocean basins. But humans normally can't hear these frequencies at all. But people with HASS can. Exactly. And here's where it gets complicated. She pulls out a brain scan, an fMRI image showing highlighted regions in brilliant colour. We believe that people with HASS may be able to perceive infrasound signals that carry information. Structured infrasound. Patterns that resemble speech or music. We don't fully understand the mechanism yet, but we have documented cases of HASS patients hearing voices that turn out to contain accurate information they couldn't have known through normal sensory channels. You're saying the voices I'm hearing are real, not hallucinations? I'm saying they might be based on real auditory signals that your enhanced hearing is detecting. Whether those signals are meaningful, whether they're actually carrying information, or whether your brain is imposing patterns on random noise, that's an open question. This sounds insane. It sounds like pseudoscience, like the kind of thing I'd dismiss immediately if I heard it at a conference. But Dr. Cordova is showing me peer-reviewed publications, brain scans with her name on them, genetic sequencing data identifying a mutation in a gene called AUD7 that regulates auditory processing. Why didn't my mother tell me about this? She was trying to protect you. She hoped you wouldn't inherit the condition. HASS is autosomal dominant with variable penetrance. That means if one parent has it, there's about a 60% chance their child will develop symptoms. She was hoping you'd be in the lucky 40%. But I'm not. No, the fact that you're hearing voices now, at age 34, suggests you've definitely inherited the active form of the mutation. Your mother's symptoms started at 35, almost exactly the same age. Dr. Cordova closes the folder. There's one more thing. Your mother wanted me to give you this if you came here. She hands me a small USB drive. What's on it? Audio files, recordings your mother made over the past 20 years. She was documenting the voices she heard, trying to understand them. She believed they were trying to tell her something important, something about your family history, something about you. I take the USB drive with trembling hands. It's warm from being in Dr. Cordova's pocket, and I'm struck by the absurd thought that this small piece of plastic contains my mother's voice, her real voice, the private voice she used when she thought no one was listening. Do you have somewhere quiet you can listen to these? Dr. Cordova asks. It might be emotionally difficult. She was quite frank about her experiences. I'll listen in my car. Before you go, she stands, moving to a cabinet near the window. I want to run some tests, brain imaging, genetic screening, comprehensive auditory processing evaluation. can you come back next week? I have an opening on Thursday afternoon. Why? What would the tests tell us? HAS is progressive. Your symptoms will get worse over time. Right now, you're hearing voices occasionally. In a year, you might be hearing them constantly. We need to establish a baseline so we can track the progression. And we need to see if you're a candidate for treatment. There's treatment? Experimental. We're working on targeted interventions that can dampen the hyperactivity in the auditory cortex without eliminating the enhanced sensitivity entirely. Some patients find the condition useful. They just want to be able to control it, to turn down the volume when it becomes overwhelming. But we need to understand your specific neurological profile before we can determine which interventions might help. I agree to return for testing. As I'm leaving, Dr. Cordova says something that will haunt me for weeks. Your mother believed the voices were trying to warn her about something. She thought your family was in danger. She spent the last year of her life trying to protect you from something she could hear but couldn't quite understand. Be careful, Olivia. If she was right, you might be hearing warnings too. And, unlike your mother, you have the scientific training to understand what they mean. Chapter 3. The recordings. I drive to a rest stop 20 miles from the clinic and sit in my car with my laptop open, the USB drive inserted. The parking lot is nearly empty, just a couple of long-haul trucks and a family eating McDonald's in their minivan. There are dozens of audio files organised by date, starting from 2005 and continuing until 3 weeks before my mother's death. I start with the earliest one, my hand shaking slightly as I click play. My mother's voice fills my car, younger, stronger than I remember from her final months, still carrying that precise diction she used for concert performances. September 14th, 2005. Age 40. I've been hearing the voices for 5 years now, since I turned 35. At first, I thought I was losing my mind. I made an appointment with a psychiatrist, started taking antipsychotics. They didn't help. The voices kept getting clearer, more insistent. Then, I found Dr. Cordova's research on HAS, and suddenly everything made sense. The voices are real, or at least they're based on real auditory signals I'm perceiving. I don't understand how this is possible. I don't understand the mechanism, but I'm documenting everything because maybe someday someone will understand. A pause. I hear her breathing, hear the sound of papers rustling. The voice I hear most frequently is female. She calls herself Margaret. She says she's my mother, my biological mother who died in 1987 when I was 25. I was at her bedside when she died. I watched her take her last breath. So either I'm hallucinating a dead woman, or something scientifically impossible is happening. Dr. Cordova says it might be that I'm detecting residual patterns in infrasound, some kind of biological echo. I don't know what that means. But Margaret knows things. She knows things I never told anyone. She knows details about my childhood that only she would know. I stopped the recording. Margaret, that was my grandmother's name. My mother's mother. I never met her. She died 2 years before I was born. But I've seen photographs. A tall, severe-looking woman with my mother's eyes and cheekbones. A woman who, according to family stories, was distant and critical, just like my mother became. I skip forward to a file dated 6 months before my mother's death. March 3rd, 2024. I'm dying. The cancer has metastasized to my liver and spine. They're giving me 3 to 6 months. And Margaret won't stop talking. She keeps warning me about Olivia. She says Olivia is in danger. She says our family has enemies. People who know about HAS. People who've been tracking our family for generations. People who want to use what we can do for something terrible. My mother's voice cracks with emotion I've rarely heard from her. I don't know if I believe this. It sounds paranoid, like the kind of conspiracy thinking that paranoid schizophrenics develop. But Margaret has been right about things before. 3 years ago, she told me I had cancer, described the exact location, tail of the pancreas. I got tested. She was right. 2 years before I had any symptoms, she knew. So maybe I should listen now. Maybe Olivia really is in danger. Another pause. I hear her crying softly. If Olivia is hearing this after I'm gone, sweetheart, I'm so sorry I didn't tell you in person. I tried. God, I tried so many times in those last months. But you were always so busy, and I was afraid. Afraid you'd think I was crazy. Afraid you'd commit me to psychiatric care. Afraid you'd pull away like you always did when things got too emotional. So I took the coward's way out and left you a note instead. She takes a shaky breath. You need to know. HAS isn't just a medical condition. It's something people have been studying for a long time. There are organisations that track families with HAS, government agencies, private contractors, research institutions. They monitor us. They document us. In some cases, they recruit us or force us to work for them. Your grandmother tried to tell me this before she died, but I didn't listen. I thought she was confused, that the cancer had spread to her brain. I dismissed her warnings. Don't make my mistake, Olivia. Don't make my mistake. The recording ends. I sit in shocked silence, my mind racing. This can't be true. The government doesn't track people with unusual genetic conditions. This is America, not some dystopian surveillance state. Except, isn't it? I think about the Tuskegee experiments, about forced sterilization programs, about MKUltra and radiation testing on unwitting subjects, about all the times the government has done terrible things to vulnerable people in the name of research or national security. I'm about to play another file when I hear it again, that voice in my left ear. Olivia, your mother was right. They're watching you. I spin around. The parking lot is still nearly empty. There's no one near my car. Who are you? I say aloud, feeling ridiculous for talking to a voice only I can hear. I'm Margaret, your grandmother, and you need to get away from here. Right now. They tracked you to the Cordova Institute. They know you have HAS now. They'll be coming for you. This isn't real. I'm having auditory hallucinations caused by a genetic condition. You're not my grandmother. You're a neural anomaly, a pattern my overactive auditory cortex is imposing on random infrasonic noise. Then explain this. The voice seems to shift, coming from directly in front of me now instead of my left ear. In your glove compartment, there's an envelope. Open it. I freeze. I don't remember putting an envelope in my glove compartment, but my hands are already reaching for it, opening the compartment. There's an envelope inside, old, yellowed with age, my name written on it in handwriting I don't recognise. I open it with shaking hands. Inside is a black and white photograph I've never seen before. It shows a young woman, maybe 30 years old, standing next to a sign that says Cordova Institute for Neurological Research, SG 1986. The woman looks exactly like me. Same face, same eyes, same hair, same crooked smile I see in my own mirror. On the back, written in my mother's handwriting, your grandmother Margaret, 1986, outside the clinic where they first tested her. She wanted you to have this. She wanted you to know you're not alone. The voice speaks again, and this time it sounds sad, tired, filled with decades of regret. Your mother left that for you. She knew you'd need proof, knew you'd think you were going crazy without some physical evidence that I'm real. Olivia, we don't have much time. There are people who know you've been to see Dr. Cordova. They monitor that clinic. They track everyone with HAS. And once they know you have the active form of the condition, they'll come for you. just like they came for me, just like they came for your mother. Come for me? For what? Because HAS isn't just about hearing, Olivia. It's about communication. We can hear each other across distances that shouldn't be possible. We can send messages through infrasound that normal humans can't perceive. We can create networks of information that can't be intercepted by conventional surveillance. And some people, governments, military contractors, intelligence agencies, they want to weaponize that ability. They want to turn people like us into living surveillance devices, living communication networks that operate on frequencies no one else can detect or block. I should drive to a hospital. I should admit myself to psychiatric care. This is clearly a psychotic break, possibly triggered by grief and stress and sleep deprivation. But the photograph in my hand is real, and the voice knows things it shouldn't know. And my mother's recordings describe exactly what I'm experiencing now. What do? I ask, my voice barely a whisper. Drive. Don't go back to your apartment. They'll be waiting there. Don't contact anyone you know. They'll be monitoring your communications. I'll guide you to somewhere safe, somewhere they can't find you, and then I'll tell you the truth about our family, about why we have HAS, about what it really means, about what your mother discovered before she died. I start my car and pull back onto the highway, following directions from a voice I'm not sure is real, heading toward answers I'm not sure I want. And behind me, just coming into view in my rearview mirror, I see 3 black SUVs with tinted windows pull out of a service road and begin following at exactly my speed. Chapter 4. The Facility. The voice, Margaret, guides me north for 2 hours, deeper into the Adirondacks, until I'm on back roads I've never seen before. Roads that don't appear on my GPS. Roads that wind through forest so dense that even in daylight, the canopy blocks most of the sun. Turn here, Margaret's voice says. I turn onto an unmarked dirt road. My sedan wasn't built for this terrain. Branches scrape the sides, rocks ping off the undercarriage. After a mile, I reach a chain-link fence with private property, no trespassing signs every 20 feet. Beyond it, I can see what looks like an abandoned military facility, concrete buildings with broken windows, rusted equipment scattered across overgrown grounds, a guard tower leaning at an impossible angle. Get out. Walk to the fence. There's a gate on the right side. I follow the instructions, my heart hammering. This is insane. I'm following directions from a hallucination, walking into an abandoned facility in the middle of nowhere. If the people in the black SUVs catch up to me here, no one will ever find my body. But I keep walking. The gate is locked, but when I touch it, it swings open. Someone's cut the lock recently. The metal is bright where it was severed. Go to the largest building, 3rd from the left. The door will be unlocked. The building looms before me. 3 stories of concrete and steel, windows like empty eye sockets. A faded sign near the entrance reads, Building C, authorized personnel only. I push the heavy steel door. It opens with a groan of rusted hinges. Inside, it's dark and cold. I use my phone's flashlight to navigate. The first floor is gutted, empty rooms with wires hanging from the ceiling, graffiti on the walls, evidence of squatters and vandals who've been through here over the years. Downstairs, there's a basement. I find a staircase leading down. Each step echoes in the darkness. At the bottom, I discover something shocking. The basement is not abandoned. It's been recently used. There's modern equipment, computers with screens showing screensavers, recording devices, brain scanning equipment similar to what I use in my own lab, but more sophisticated, more expensive. And on one wall, there's a massive bulletin board covered with photos, documents, maps. Red string connects dozens of images. I step closer and see my own face staring back at me. My photo is at the center of the board, connected by red string to dozens of other photos. Women. all different ages, different eras. Some photos are recent colour prints. Some are black and white from the 1970s or earlier. Some are so old they look like daguerreotypes from the 1800s. All the women look like me. Same face structure, same eyes, same distinctive crooked smile. "What is this?" I whisper. "This is a research facility," Margaret's voice says, and now I can hear something else in her tone. Not just sadness, but anger. It was run by a private organisation called the Harmony Project. They've been tracking our family for 4 generations, studying us, documenting every woman with HAS, trying to understand how it works so they can replicate it, so they can weaponize it. I examine the documents more closely. Medical records, genetic analyses going back decades, surveillance reports with timestamps and locations, all focused on women in my family. Margaret, 1956 and 1987. Subject demonstrated advanced auditory sensitivity beginning age 35. Recruited 1986. Terminated 1987 following non-compliance. Elizabeth, 1966, 2024. Subject inherited condition. Refused recruitment 1991. Placed under passive surveillance. Cancer diagnosis 2023. Possible stress-induced acceleration. Olivia, 1991, present. High probability of active inheritance. PhD in neuroscience. Potential value for research collaboration. Recruitment attempted October 2025. I stop reading. Recruitment attempted. That means they're coming for me. Right now. Why? I ask. Why are they doing this? Margaret's voice grows stronger, as though she's moving closer to me through whatever infrasonic channel carries her signal. Because HAS is more than just enhanced hearing, Olivia. It's a form of communication that can't be intercepted, can't be blocked, can't be decoded by conventional technology. Imagine a communication network that works through infrasound. Messages that can travel hundreds of miles through the ground, through water, through walls. Conversations that can happen without any physical device. No phones, no internet, no radio waves that can be jammed or traced. Just sound below the threshold of normal hearing. I find a document titled Project Harmony, Weaponization of Hereditary Auditory Sensitivity Syndrome, classified. My hands shake as I read it. The document describes a program started in 1962, during the height of the Cold War, to identify and study families with HAS. The goal was to create a biological communication network for military and intelligence purposes that couldn't be detected or disrupted by enemy forces. They identified 12 families with the genetic markers. They tracked them across generations, tested them, and in some cases they recruited them, or forced them. I find a photo of my grandmother, young and frightened, sitting in what looks like a laboratory. The caption reads, Subject M. Marsh, Day 47 of testing protocol. Subject continues to demonstrate ability to receive and transmit structured infrasound at distances exceeding 12 kilometers. Neurological stress indicators elevated but within acceptable parameters. My grandmother worked for them, I realize aloud. Not worked for. Was used by, Margaret's voice corrects, and now I can hear decades of pain in her words. They approached me when I was 36, 6 months after the voices started. They told me they could help me control my symptoms. They offered treatment, medication, therapy. What they really wanted was to study how HAS could be used for surveillance and communication. They made me listen to classified conversations happening miles away, conversations between Russian diplomats, between suspected spies. They had me send messages to other HAS individuals in different cities. They treated me like a living radio antenna. And my mother? Your mother refused. When they approached her in 1991, she said no. She'd learned from my experience what they really wanted. She went into hiding, changed her last name. Did you know Marsh isn't our family's original surname? It was Markovich, She changed it to Marsh, moved constantly, tried to disappear. But they always found her. You can't hide from people who can track you through satellite surveillance and medical records. A new voice joins the conversation. Softer, more familiar. My mother. Olivia, sweetheart, I'm here. I couldn't leave you alone to face this. Tears streamed down my face. Mum. Yes. It takes time to learn how to project after death. Margaret taught me. The infrasound patterns that encode our consciousness. They don't disappear when we die. They persist. They echo. And for people with HAS, those echoes are as real as living voices. I want to believe this is impossible. I want to believe I'm having a psychotic break. But I'm standing in a secret research facility with evidence of a decades-long conspiracy. I'm holding documents that prove everything my grandmother is saying. What do I do? I ask. Margaret answers. In this room, there's a file cabinet in the corner. Grey metal, 4 drawers. The 3rd drawer has files labelled Marsh Family Archive. Take everything. That's your evidence. That's what they don't want anyone to see. I find the cabinet. The 3rd drawer is labelled exactly as Margaret described. Inside are files documenting 70 years of surveillance and experimentation. Medical records of women in my family going back to my great-great-grandmother. Genetic analyses, brain scans, transcripts of intercepted communications. And at the bottom, a USB drive labelled Backup All Subjects, 1962 to 1825. I grab everything, shoving files into my backpack. Then I hear it. Car engines, multiple vehicles. The black SUVs have found me. Back exit, my mother's voice says urgently. Through the equipment room, there's a door that leads to a maintenance tunnel. It comes out 300 yards north. Follow it. I run. Behind me, I hear voices shouting. Footsteps on stairs. They're in the building. I find the maintenance tunnel. A narrow concrete passage lit only by my phone. I run through darkness, my breath echoing off the walls, my footsteps splashing through standing water. The tunnel opens into forest. I keep running, branches tearing at my clothes, my lungs burning. Left, Margaret guides me. There's a service road. Follow it for half a mile. There's a car there. Keys under the driver's seat. Your mother arranged it months ago. How? She knew this day would come. She prepared. I find the car, an old Honda Civic covered in forest debris. The keys are exactly where Margaret said they'd be. I get in, start the engine, and drive. In my rearview mirror, I see flashlights bobbing through the trees. They're searching, but I'm already gone. Chapter 5. The Network. I drive for 3 days straight, sleeping in the car at rest stops, paying for everything with cash so I can't be tracked. Margaret and my mother guide me, their voices constant companions now. On the 4th day, I end up in a cheap motel in rural Vermont, exhausted and terrified, and trying to make sense of the documents I took from the facility. The files tell a story I wish I didn't have to believe. The Harmony Project began in 1962 as a black-budget CIA program during the Kennedy administration. They discovered through classified medical research that certain families carried a genetic mutation, the AUD7 gene variant, that caused enhanced auditory processing. More importantly, they discovered that people with this mutation could perceive and generate infrasound at levels that allowed for long-distance communication. The implications were immediately obvious to the intelligence community. If they could recruit or create a network of HAS individuals, they could establish a communication system that was completely invisible to enemy surveillance. No radio signals to intercept, no phone lines to tap. Just infrasonic signals travelling through the ground and air at frequencies below normal human hearing. They identified 12 families with strong HAS traits. They tracked them across generations, tested their children, documented which ones developed active symptoms. And when those children became adults, the Harmony Project approached them. sometimes with offers of help, sometimes with offers of money, sometimes with threats. My grandmother was one of them. According to the documents, Margaret Markovich was recruited in 1986 at age 30. She'd been experiencing auditory hallucinations for 5 years and was desperate for help. The Harmony Project told her they could cure her. Instead, they used her. For 18 months, they ran experiments. They had her listen to conversations happening miles away, testing the range and clarity of her HAS abilities. They had her send messages to other recruited HAS individuals in different locations, testing the communication potential. They documented everything with brain scans and genetic analyses. Then she got pregnant. With my mother. According to the files, Margaret tried to leave the program when she discovered she was pregnant. She didn't want her child born into this world of surveillance and experimentation. The Harmony Project refused. They wanted to study the child, wanted to see if HAS traits could be enhanced through selective breeding. Margaret refused. And 3 months after my mother was born, Margaret died in what was officially ruled an accident, a car crash on a rural road. But the files contain a memo suggesting otherwise. Subject M terminated following non-compliance and attempted whistleblowing. My grandmother was murdered because she tried to protect her daughter. I'm crying as I read this, crying for a grandmother I never met, crying for my mother who grew up without a mother because of this program. My mother's voice speaks softly in my ear. I found these documents last year. When I knew I was dying, I wanted to understand why Margaret had died. I hired a private investigator. He tracked down former Harmony Project employees. One of them, racked with guilt, told me everything, gave me access to their digital archives. That's how I got the backup drive. Why didn't you go public? I asked. Because I wanted to protect you. If I'd exposed them, they would have come after you immediately. As long as they thought you didn't know, as long as they thought you'd never develop HAS symptoms, you were safe. I was hoping you'd never inherit the active form. I was hoping you'd live a normal life. But I didn't. No. And now you have to decide what to do with this information. I spend the next 2 weeks in that motel room, reviewing every document, organising evidence, building a case. The USB drive contains decades of files, medical experiments conducted without consent, surveillance that violated every privacy law, evidence that at least 7 women with HAS had died under suspicious circumstances after trying to leave the program or refusing to cooperate. The Harmony Project technically ended in 1997, when congressional oversight defunded the original CIA program. But the documents show it was immediately privatized. A defense contractor called Resonance Solutions took over the research. They continued tracking HAS families, continued recruiting, continued experimenting, and they're still active today. On day 15, I'm sitting on the motel bed surrounded by documents when I hear a new voice. Not Margaret, not my mother, someone else. Hello? Is anyone there? The voice is young, uncertain, female. Who is this? I ask. My name is Rachel Winters. I think I'm dead. I don't understand what's happening. I can hear voices, I can hear you, but I can't see anything. I can't feel anything. I'm just sound. I remember this name, Rachel Winters. She's in the files. Age 29. HAS identified at age 26. Approached by Resonance Solutions for recruitment. Refused. 3 months later, last year, she committed suicide. Except, I don't think it was suicide anymore. Rachel, I say gently, I'm going to help you. I'm going to expose what they did to you. But I need you to tell me everything you remember about Resonance Solutions. Everything they said to you. Everything they did. She tells me. And her story is horrifying. They approached her with a job offer, a well-paid position as a sensory analyst for a government contractor. The work seemed legitimate at first. They'd have her listen to audio recordings and identify subtle patterns normal people couldn't hear. They said her enhanced hearing was a valuable asset. But then the work changed. They wanted her to listen to intercepted phone calls, to analyse conversations between suspected terrorists, to use her HAS abilities for surveillance. Rachel said no. She wanted to quit. They told her she couldn't. She'd signed a contract. She'd received classified briefings. If she tried to leave, if she told anyone what she'd done, they'd prosecute her for violating national security laws. She tried to leave anyway. They made her life hell. Constant surveillance, threats against her family. She developed severe anxiety and depression. And one night, she took a bottle of pills. But now, listening to her describe what happened in those final months, I don't think she was suicidal. I think she was driven to suicide by deliberate psychological manipulation. Rachel, I say, I'm going to make them pay for what they did to you. I'm going to expose everything. But I need you to help me. I need you to tell your story to other people. How? I'm dead. You're not dead. Not entirely. Your consciousness has been encoded as an infrasonic pattern. Other people with HAS can hear you. We can record you. We can prove you exist. We can prove that HAS isn't just a medical condition. It's a way of preserving consciousness after death. Over the next few days, I discover I'm not alone. There are other living HAS individuals out there. Not many, maybe 50 in North America that I can detect, and they're all hearing the same voices. The dead HAS women who came before us. Women who died but left behind persistent patterns in infrasound. We start communicating, building a network, sharing information. A woman named Jennifer Chen in California. A woman named Sarah Al-Rahman in Texas. A man named Marcus Liu in Oregon. Yes, men can have HAS too, though it's rarer. A teenager named Emma Rodriguez in Florida who just started hearing voices and is terrified she's going insane. We call ourselves the Inheritance, because that's what we are, inheritors of a genetic legacy that's both gift and curse. And we decide together to fight back. Chapter 6. The Choice. I spend the next month compiling everything into a comprehensive report. I include the documents from the Harmony Project facility, the medical records showing experimentation without consent, the surveillance reports proving illegal monitoring of American citizens, the evidence suggesting that multiple HAS women were murdered or driven to suicide, testimony from Rachel and other deceased HAS individuals whose voices I can hear and record. I send copies to journalists, to civil liberties organizations, to congressional oversight committees. I include brain scans showing that I can hear Rachel's voice, that when she speaks, my auditory cortex lights up in ways consistent with processing actual sound. I include spectrograms showing infrasonic patterns that correlate with her speech. The story breaks on a Tuesday in early December. Secret military program, tracked and experimented on American families for 6 decades. The Washington Post runs it on page 1. CNN covers it for 3 days straight. Congressional hearings are announced. Resonance Solutions issues a statement denying everything. They claim the documents are fabricated. They say I'm a disturbed woman having a psychiatric crisis. But then other HAS individuals come forward. Jennifer, Sarah, Marcus, Emma, 12 others I've connected with through the Inheritance Network. We all testify to the same experiences. We all share our medical records showing the genetic mutation. We all provide evidence of surveillance and harassment. The evidence becomes overwhelming. Within 2 weeks, Resonance Solutions CEO resigns. The company is sued by multiple families. Congressional investigations are launched. The FBI opens a criminal inquiry into whether company employees violated civil rights laws. The program is shut down, the surveillance stops, but the voices remain. I'm sitting in my office at Columbia. I've returned to work, returned to my research, when Dr. Cordova calls. "I wanted to thank you," she says, "for exposing them, for protecting future generations of Hass individuals. Your mother would be proud." "Is she?" I ask. "Is she still there, still listening?" "Why don't you ask her yourself?" And I do. That night, lying in bed, I speak into the darkness. "Mum, are you there?" "Always," her voice answers. "I'm always here, sweetheart, watching over you, proud of you, so proud of what you've done. I'm sorry I didn't listen when you tried to tell me. I'm sorry I was too busy, too distant, too afraid of emotions. I know, and I forgive you. I should have been more honest, should have been warmer, should have told you I loved you more often. We both made mistakes, but look what you've done. You've turned those mistakes into something meaningful." Over the next 6 months, I do 3 things. First, I restart my research with a new focus. I begin studying Hass publicly, legitimately, ethically. I recruit other individuals with the condition. I work with Dr. Cordova to develop treatments that help people manage symptoms without suppressing the ability entirely. We discover that Hass can be both disability and gift, depending on how it's understood and controlled. Some patients choose medication to dampen the auditory hyperactivity. Others choose to train themselves to filter out noise and focus on meaningful signals. I choose the latter. I learn to control my abilities, to turn down the volume when I need quiet, to tune in when I want to communicate with the inheritance network or hear the voices of my deceased relatives. Second, I build the inheritance into something larger. We're not just a support group anymore. We're an advocacy organisation, a mutual aid network, a community of people who share this rare genetic condition and want to help each other navigate it. We help newly diagnosed individuals understand what's happening to them. We connect families. We fight discrimination when Hass individuals are denied jobs or insurance because of their condition. We work with legislators to protect our rights, and we stay in contact with those who've passed on. The deceased Hass women whose voices persist. We record their testimonies. We preserve their stories. We prove that consciousness doesn't simply end at death, at least not for people like us. Third, I try to understand the implications of what we've discovered. If consciousness can be encoded as persistent patterns in infrasound, what does that mean about the nature of consciousness itself? Is consciousness a purely biological phenomenon, neurons firing in particular patterns, or is it something more? Information that can exist independent of the biological substrate that created it? I write papers about this, not for neuroscience journals, they're not ready for these ideas yet, but for philosophy journals, for interdisciplinary publications that explore the boundary between science and metaphysics. Some of my colleagues think I've lost my mind, but others are intrigued, curious, willing to consider that we might be discovering something fundamental about the nature of consciousness and death. 1 year after exposing the Harmony Project, I'm sitting in my office when I hear a knock on my door. A woman in her mid-40s enters. Sharp business suit, detective's shield on her belt. She has tired eyes and a notebook filled with scrawled notes. "Dr. Marsh, I'm Detective Laura Chen, NYPD homicide. I need to talk to you about something unusual." I gesture for her to sit. "I've been investigating a series of murders," she says. 7 women in the past 18 months, all killed in different ways, different locations. We couldn't find the connection until I heard about your work. I think all the victims had Hass. My stomach drops. Someone's targeting Hass individuals? We think so. And here's the strange part. 2 of the victims left voicemails for family members minutes after their recorded time of death. The timestamps are confirmed. The calls were made after the women were already dead, but you can hear their voices on the recordings. They were sending infrasound signals, final messages. That's what I thought after reading your research. Dr. Marsh, I need your help. If these women are still communicating, can you hear them? Can they tell us who killed them? I should say no. I should stay out of this. I've already made enough enemies by exposing the Harmony Project. Getting involved in a murder investigation could make me a target. But then I hear Rachel's voice. Help her, Olivia. Help us. There are other women like me who died and no one believed them. No one heard them. You can change that. And Margaret, this is what the inheritance is for, using our abilities to protect each other, to get justice for those who can't get it themselves. And my mother, you have a gift, sweetheart. Use it. Make their deaths mean something. I look at Detective Chen and make a decision. I'll help, but you need to understand something. The information I receive won't be admissible in court. You can't verify my sources. Courts don't accept testimony from the dead. I don't need it to be admissible. I just need leads, direction, somewhere to start looking. Then let's get started. Epilogue. The first case. Detective Chen spreads crime scene photos across my desk. 7 women, ages 28 to 45. Different cities, different methods of death. Tell me about them, I say. First victim, Amanda Price, 28, Seattle. Found dead in her apartment from apparent carbon monoxide poisoning, ruled accidental, faulty heater. But she left a voicemail for her sister 2 hours after estimated time of death. I close my eyes and listen. The room goes quiet except for the hum of my computer and distant traffic. I focus on the infrasonic frequencies, on the subtle patterns below normal hearing. And I hear her. Amanda's voice is faint, fragmented. Death was recent, only 6 months ago, and she's still learning how to project clearly. But I can make out words. Not accident. He was there, couldn't breathe, shut the window, locked the door. Someone was in her apartment, I tell Detective Chen. Someone shut the window and locked her in with carbon monoxide. She's saying he, but she can't describe him clearly. The memory is fragmenting. Detective Chen makes notes. Second victim, Lisa Hernandez, 32, Chicago. Fell from her apartment balcony, ruled suicide. She'd been taking antidepressants, left a note. But her mother swears she heard Lisa's voice the next day saying someone pushed her. I listen for Lisa. Her voice is clearer. She's been dead longer, had more time to learn how to communicate in this form. He came to my door, said he was from building maintenance, needed to check the balcony railing. I let him in. Stupid. So stupid. He pushed me when I had my back turned. I felt hands on my spine. Then falling. Then nothing. Then this. Same attacker? Detective Chen asks. Possibly. She describes a man pretending to be maintenance. Professional, planned, not an impulse killing. We go through the remaining 5 victims, each one murdered in ways designed to look like accidents or suicides, each one killed by someone they trusted enough to let into their space. And as I listen to their stories, a pattern emerges. All 7 women had been contacted by Resonance Solutions. All 7 had refused to work for them, and all 7 died within 6 months of refusing. This isn't random, I tell Detective Chen. Someone's killing Haas women who won't cooperate. Someone who knows about Haas. Someone connected to Resonance Solutions. Can any of them describe the killer? I ask the voices. Amanda, Lisa, the other 5 women whose names I'm learning, whose deaths I'm documenting. Most of them can't give clear descriptions. Death fragments memory, makes details blur and fade. But one of them, a woman named Catherine, who died 3 months ago in Boston, remembers something crucial. He had a tattoo on his left wrist, 3 interlocking circles. I remember thinking it was strange. Why would a maintenance man have such an elegant tattoo? I describe this to Detective Chen. She pulls out her phone, searches for something, then shows me an image. 3 interlocking circles, the logo of Resonance Solutions. He works for them, she says, or worked for them. This gives me somewhere to start. I can look at their employee records, cross-reference with locations of the murders. And I can help from my end. If you find suspects, I can ask the victims if they recognize them. Detective Chen stands, collecting her photos. This is unprecedented, using testimony from the dead to solve murders. It's going to be complicated. Everything about Hass is complicated, but that doesn't mean we should ignore it. No, she extends her hand. Thank you, Dr. Marsh. I'll be in touch. After she leaves, I sit alone in my office, surrounded by the voices of women I've never met, but who I'm now connected to through this strange inheritance we share. Thank you, Amanda says. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing us, Lisa adds. Thank you for not letting us disappear, Catherine whispers. And I realise this is what the inheritance is really about. Not just helping the living navigate Hass, but giving voice to the dead who would otherwise be forgotten, creating a network that transcends the boundary between life and death. I pull out my phone and text the other inheritance members. I need help. NYPD has a serial killer targeting Hass women. We're going to solve this together. Anyone who can hear the victims, start listening. Document everything. Within minutes, responses flood in. Jennifer in California. I hear 3 of them. Taking notes. Sarah in Texas. I'll cross-reference with my database of Hass individuals. Marcus in Oregon. I have contacts in law enforcement. Can help coordinate. Emma in Florida, the teenager who was so scared when her voices started. I can hear them too. The victims. They're teaching me how to listen. I want to help. We're building something new, something unprecedented, a network of the living and dead working together, using abilities that were once weaponized against us to protect each other, to get justice, to make sure no one is silenced just because they died. My mother's voice speaks softly in my ear. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. This is what I hoped for. This is what I died protecting. The future where Hass isn't a curse or a weapon, but a gift, a way of connecting across boundaries that were supposed to be uncrossable. Are you happy now? I ask her, in whatever form you exist in now. I'm at peace. I'm with Margaret. We're watching over you. And we're not going anywhere. That's what Hass really means, Olivia. It means we never truly leave. We just shift to a different frequency. And as long as there's someone with the ability to hear us, we remain. I look out my office window at the Manhattan skyline. Somewhere out there is a killer targeting women like me. Women with abilities they don't understand. Women who can hear voices others can't. But now we have something the killer doesn't expect. We have an entire network of people he thought he'd silenced. 7 dead women who can still testify. Dozens of living Hass individuals who can hear them. A detective willing to listen to impossible testimony. We're going to catch him. And after we do, we're going to keep building this network. Keep helping each other. Keep proving that consciousness doesn't end at death. It just changes form. I'm no longer the neuroscientist who studies auditory hallucinations. I'm the woman who learned to listen to a frequency most people can't hear, and I'm using that ability to protect those who come after me. The inheritance continues. The network grows. The voices of the dead join with the living to create something that was supposed to be impossible. And somewhere in the infrasonic frequencies below the threshold of normal hearing, my mother and grandmother smile, knowing that their sacrifices weren't in vain. We are the inheritance, and we are just getting started. The end